In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NFL games happening on October 2nd, 2022, and providing you with team picks and total picks for each one of those games. So 2 picks for each game, 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NFL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive betting picks to take your sports betting journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer anywhere from 1 betting pick a day up to 10 betting picks a day and much more. Now let's get started. Minnesota Vikings versus New Orleans Saints. The 2-1 Minnesota Vikings and the 1-2 New Orleans Saints head overseas to take part in the NFL's annual pilgrimage to London. The Vikings bounced back from a drubbing in Philly with a come-from-behind win over the Lions on Sunday. The Saints have now dropped 2 straight games after squeaking out an opening day win over Atlanta to kick off the season. On Sunday, the Saints fell 22-14 at Carolina. The Vikings are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games in October and 10-1 against the spread in their last 12 games on turf. The Saints are 37-15 against the spread in their last 52 games in October and 4-10 against the spread versus a team with a winning record. The over is 8-3 in Vikings' last 11 games overall. The under is 8-2 in Saints' last 10 games overall. The Vikings are 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 meetings. The favorite is 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 meetings. Minnesota rallied twice from double-digit deficits to beat Detroit last week. The Vikings came up big in the fourth quarter, scoring 14 points against the Lions. Minnesota has top running back Dalvin Cook listed as questionable with a shoulder injury but is likely to play. New Orleans has a few more serious issues as quarterback Jameis Winston has a bad back and was held out of practice Wednesday, while wide receiver Michael Thomas was also held out due to a foot injury, and wide receiver Jarvis Landry was also held out of practice because of a bad ankle. New Orleans has been sloppy with the ball this season, committing 9 turnovers, which is the most in the NFL. New Orleans has had an interception and fumble return for touchdowns against them. The Vikings have covered the spread in 10 of the last 12 played on turf, and New Orleans has failed to cover the spread in 7 of the last 9 played on turf. The Minnesota Vikings head across the pond feeling good and confident after their comeback win over the Lions, and their ground game finally showed signs of life. The New Orleans Saints can't seem to finish drives offensively, and they have a run defense that's 26th in the league. Another thing to consider is this is the 3rd time in 4 games the Saints are playing on the road somewhere. All this traveling early has to take its toll on the Saints at some point. These games can be weird and wacky, but the Vikings are playing the better ball up to this point and are probably the more talented team from top to bottom. So the Minnesota Vikings to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. This total has already dropped a half point and may drop a bit more by game time as it becomes more and more apparent that it will be Dalton and not Winston. By no means am I underestimating Dalton as a capable NFL quarterback. In fact, he may be the safer option for New Orleans at the moment after a slew of interceptions by Winston the last few weeks. However, with Dalton comes a different approach to offense. Much more methodical drives and short passes that will consume clock. Minnesota will likely lay back at first and keep the ball in front of them unless they fall behind. I don't expect the Vikings to fall behind in this one, however, and I think their offense will put up some scores and force Dalton to take shots that he will be unable to deliver on. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. Cleveland Browns versus Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons will host the Cleveland Browns on Sunday. The Browns are coming in with extra rest after beating the Pittsburgh Steelers 29-17 as a 4.5-point favorite last Thursday. The Falcons are coming off a win as well after beating the Seattle Seahawks 27-23 as a 1-point road dog last Sunday. This will be the first head-to-head meeting between these franchises since 2018. The Browns are 12-4 against the spread in their last 16 in Week 4 and 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 in October. Cleveland is 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 after a straight-up win. Meanwhile, the Falcons are 3-1 against the spread in their last 5 overall and 6-16 against the spread in the last 22 in October. Atlanta is 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 at home. Keep an eye on the status of Myles Garrett. The Pro Bowler got into a rough car accident earlier this week and is nursing a shoulder and biceps injury ahead of this matchup. If Garrett can't go and Jadeveon Clowney also sits again, this line will likely keep moving towards Atlanta. Even if Garrett and Clowney do play, they could have a tough time holding down this Falcons offense, which has performed much better than expected so far this season under second-year head coach Arthur Smith. Atlanta is averaging over 26 points per game, and Marcus Mariota is putting up Pro Bowl-like numbers. In Week 3 alone, Mariota had the highest completion percentage over expectation and led the league in air yards. He was also 5th in success rate and 8th in EPA play. Overall this season, Mariota is 5th in EPA play plus CPOE on early downs, a key metric for grading how efficiently a quarterback is playing. The reason why early downs are important is that they tend to be the most conducive to explosive plays, since the defense is usually having to account for the run and the pass. The Browns are also playing like a bottom 5 defense so far and allowing nearly a 50% success rate on dropbacks, so I would be surprised if Atlanta didn't have some success here on offense. Take nothing away from the performance of Jacoby Brissett, who is grading out like a top 5 QB, well above expectation, but I would bet on regression at some point. The Browns' running game is the real key here, and I'm expecting Atlanta to load up the box to stop it, which might open up more opportunities for Brissett on the back end. Cleveland has the highest rush EPA play in the NFL so far this season, and while the Falcons' defense has been nothing to write home about, they are 10th in run-stop win rate. If Falcons' DC Dean Pease can somehow draw up a scheme to keep Brissett in third and long situations, I think Atlanta is a decent bet as a home dog. So the Atlanta Falcons to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. I've mentioned in the past how 51 is the most landed on total in the NFL over the last few seasons, so you should always use that as a dividing line on whether or not to bet over or under in a specific game. That's not to say you can never bet over 51.5, but you just need that much more of a reason to, compared to a 50.5 or 51. The Browns' defense has been abused multiple times this season, and they are allowing nearly a 50% success rate on dropbacks. That's great news for Marcus Mariota, who is playing at a much higher level than expected in this Atlanta offense. Year 2 under Arthur Smith has shown some explosion and efficiency, especially on early downs where Mariota has excelled. Cleveland should be able to sustain drives in this game with their potent rush attack, and Brissett has also graded out better than expected. The over is 3-0 for both of these teams this season, and I see that trend continuing here. Over the projected total is our full game total pick. I see this ending with a 30-28 type final score. Jacksonville Jaguars versus Philadelphia Eagles. It's an interconference matchup on the gridiron as Doug Peterson leads his new team into the city of brotherly love to face his former squad. The Jacksonville Jaguars are on the road in Week 4 of the NFL schedule as they take on the Philadelphia Eagles Sunday afternoon. Jacksonville rolled to a 38-10 win on the road over the Chargers last Sunday to earn their second consecutive victory. Philadelphia remained unbeaten on the season as they stifled Washington 24-8 last Sunday on the road. In the all-time regular season series between the franchises, the teams have split 6 meetings, with the Eagles taking the last 3, including a 24-18 road victory in the most recent matchup on October 18, 2018. You see how the Jaguars have played the last 2 weeks and see they're getting 6.5 points. Most people would hammer the Jaguars spread. However, I don't think the Jaguars are going to come into the Eagles' house and expose them. No one has had an answer to this Eagles offense to this point. The Jaguars have a lot of young talent flooded throughout the roster, but I don't think that's enough to stop the Eagles. Philadelphia is deep and experienced and has explosive playmakers all over. They are a nightmare to match up against, and the game is expected to be played in pretty heavy rain, so that plays even more into the Eagles' favor with Jalen Hurts' rushing abilities. Jalen Hurts is a completely different quarterback than he was before, and I think he will have another dominant showing in this one. Trevor Lawrence has been getting what he wants these last 2 weeks, but let's not forget this team lost to the Commanders. I believe that the Eagles will try to replicate what the Commanders did in Week 1, and with their experience flooded throughout the defense, they will be able to get to Lawrence. The Jaguars have been running the ball a ton with their duo of Robinson and Etienne, but that also plays into the Eagles' favor with their highly paid defensive front. Darius Slay will most likely cover Christian Kirk, and we saw what happened to Justin Jefferson in Week 2 when Slay was covering him. I expect this to be the biggest challenge so far for this young Eagles season, but they will come out victorious in this one and move to 4-0. The Eagles will take care of business at home against old pal Doug Peterson and the Jaguars, so the Philadelphia Eagles to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Jacksonville enters Week 4 having seen the over hit in 2 of their 3 games this season, though some of that can be attributed to low totals. totals. The Jaguars have combined for 50 versus Washington, 24 versus Indianapolis, and 48 versus the Chargers in their 3 games this season. In those games, the sportsbooks had set totals of 43, 44, and 45.5 points, so the threshold wasn't all that high to begin with. On the flip side, Philadelphia has seen the under hit in 2 of their 3 games as their defense has tightened up after a rough opening week. The Eagles have had combined totals of 73 versus the Lions, 31 versus the Vikings, and 32 versus Washington in their 3 games on the year. In those games, the sportsbooks had set totals at 48.5, 49.5, and 47.5 points. This game may well be controlled by the defenses as both teams have done a solid job containing opposing offenses. 3 of the last 4 meetings between the teams have ended up short of the mark, and this one follows a similar trend. Under the projected total is our full game total pick. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive betting picks to take your sports betting journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer anywhere from 1 betting pick a day up to 10 betting picks a day and much more. Now let's get started.